if whenever you speak, you could just make sure that your talk button is on. Otherwise, the recording doesn't pick up your voice, and we need that to be able to record the minutes. So just a reminder there.
Well, good morning. It's 9 o'clock, and I would like to call the meeting to order. We need the approval of today's agenda.
On this one, we would like to add the principal accounting clerk under item 6. We were not anticipating having the backgrounds back in time for this meeting, but we were able to get those returned to us, so we have that list ready if you're agreeable.
Okay.
I move the acceptance of the agenda with the addition.
Seconded.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. The approval of the minutes from, we have two that we need to approve. We need to approve the minutes from November 14th.
Seconded.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. So moved. And then on the December minutes, I have a question. If I'm not mistaken, we had talked about changes that would be made, and it looks like for the full service commission rules update,
Okay?
were those already done and placed in the book?
No, this was just the commission authorizing my department to start revising the rules and bringing them forward for your approval.
Is there a copy for everyone?
They're not complete yet, so that was going to be a first quarter project. So I just wanted your approval at the last meeting, giving me the authority to go ahead and start working on that. And then as we have those revisions, we'll start bringing them forward to you to approve individually.
Okay, because in my book, I have a section that's ripped, and then I have a new section placed in.
Yeah, let me look at that after. Yeah, there have been no rules that have been approved by you. No updates to the rules that have been approved by you. The only one that we're asking for right now is 2.2, which we brought forward at the last meeting. So I'm not sure what happened with your book. Let me look at that after with you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, if there's no other questions, need the approval of the December 12th.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. So carries. New business. We have the police officer recruitment process.
Yes, so this quarter, we will open the police officer position. Scott Vandy Woostein has joined the Human Resources Department as part of the restructuring that occurred about 6 months ago with the transition of the department. He will be running this particular recruitment process, so he'll be going over that with you today in conjunction with the police department.
Good morning, Chairman Kelly, members of the commission. Good morning, colleagues. Good to see everyone this morning. So I do apologize in advance. I'm battling a little bit of a head cold, which maybe others in the room are. So if it sounds like I'm talking through a funnel, that's how it sounds to me as well. So I'll definitely try to speak as clearly as possible. So my role here this morning for my brief conversation with you all is to kind of give you a brief overview of the process as we plan for it to roll out. Captain Imming, Chief Sikorsky, who are also in attendance today. We're still working on some of the final details as far as the dates go and some of the scoring metrics. We will have those completed in the coming weeks. You will have those well in advance of the February meeting, because at the February meeting we will be asking for your approval of the process, because we do look to probably begin this process March 1st. So we are looking for that. So today I will be going over some information about how the process is going to run. I will entertain any questions. If I don't have the answer to those questions, we have some experts in the room that possibly could answer those. And then again, like I said, we will have the final project or process for you in the coming weeks for your approval at the February meeting. So going forward, just as we have done in the past, it's a pretty long process. It's about a 4-month process. It starts with the online applications. Those that meet the minimum qualifications move on to the self-scheduling of the physical ability test. In front of you, you have the 2018 packet. That was the packet used for the last process. I provide that just for your reference. The physical ability component is listed in there that I'll reference in just a few minutes. But then after those that pass the physical ability component move on to the written exam. Those, of course, that then pass the written exam move on to the background and polygraph portion of the process, followed by a roundtable discussion, finalist interviews by senior command. The list is then certified, and then the next Iowa Law Enforcement Academy begins on August 26. And I'm going to go into each of those processes individually here moving forward. So the physical ability, in the information packet you have from 2018, it does list that. It has 4 components: the sit and reach, the 1-minute sit-up, the 1-minute push-up, and the 1.5-mile run. Applicants must pass each of the tests based on the age gender matrix, and of course each is a pass-fail. You have that matrix in front of you. That has been designed and approved by the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. All police departments in Iowa, going through the testing process, must use that particular test. So that is what we use. So when I reference the age gender matrix, it's on page, it doesn't have page numbers, but it's on about the 7th page of your information packet, okay? So that's one of the tests that every one of our applicants has the answers to the test before they go into it. So they know based on their age and based on their gender, and then based on the particular test, what they have to attain. And that attainment is, of course, the minimum attainment that they must do for the passage. And again, it's a state mandated test, so it is what we have to use. Any questions up to this point? Okay. So those candidates that are successful in passing that particular component then move on to the written exam. Written exam is called the Post Officer Selection Test by a company called Standard & Associates. Again, this is a state-approved, state-mandated test, so this is the one that we must use. Covers 4 components: arithmetic, or math, reading comprehension, grammar, and incident report writing. All components critical to the function of a police officer. Each applicant must pass each section with a score of 70% or higher, okay? So that means they must get 70%, at least 70% in all 4 sections. That's not a combined average. They can't do a 60 in one and then 90s in the other. No, they must pass each of the components, each section, by at least 70%, okay? With this one, we do have study guides that are available to them for them to take a look at. You have that study guide in front of you. Again, it's just another component. There's also an online test that they can take. I think they charge like $15, the company does, for applicants if they want to take the test ahead of time just to practice, which is always a good idea. They can do so for $15. In the past, we have offered scholarships for those that maybe couldn't, it was maybe a little bit outside of their socioeconomic reach. We would cover the cost of that on a case-by-case basis. So that's an important component. Any questions on the written exam? We all love to take written tests, don't we? So, okay. And then those that successfully pass the written exam move on to probably the most comprehensive component, which begins with the background and polygraph. They first complete the personal history statement, which is a 30-some page document which you have in front of you. They're listing essentially all their previous employers, their neighbors, their relatives. There's sections on education, any previous brushes with the law, some financial areas as well. It is a full document that we encourage that they spend a significant amount of time on, because it does take a significant amount of time. Once that happens, each of the applicants is assigned a detective or a police officer within the police department, who then dives into the information and begins the background investigation, essentially verifying the information that they have presented. And then at this time also is the polygrapher performs the polygraph exam, who in the past was Detective Carl Drezik, but there's going to be a transition. It's going to be Detective Neeson here in the coming months. So after that section, there is then a roundtable discussion, which includes members of the senior command, so the police chief, the major, the captains. Usually it's myself, and of course Mallory is HR director, members of the Affirmative Action Commission. I think members of the DCAP, the Davenport Citizens Advisory Panel, have also been invited to attend. There's very likely possibility that a member of the Civil Service Commission could attend that as well. But that is where the detectives and or police officers come in and present their findings of the background investigation on each of the applicants. And then we also receive the findings of the polygraph exam as well from the polygrapher. And that is where we can kind of get a true sense of who the final candidates are, essentially. And then from there, those that move on, that are deemed qualifying candidates for the position, then move on to the finalist interviews by Chief Sikorsky and his senior command staff. Any questions on that? I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but my hope is that you take a lot of this information, garner any questions, and then direct them directly to me at a point in the very near future.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay, yes.
The first one is, how do you deal with these involvement in criminal acts? So you have this huge, long personal history thing. And for example, you're supposed to list every single thing, whether it's been, you're not required under state law to report it. So you have something like possession of alcohol as a minor. Mm-hmm. So if somebody answers that question, what do you do with the information?
That's usually part of the broader picture. In my opinion, I think in some of the, and I'll let Chief Sikorsky and or Captain Emming add in as well. What someone did in the past is not necessarily a precursor for the future. It's essentially what have they done since then. If they made those decisions in the past when they were a minor, that's okay. But really, what have they done in the last several years as far as changing their character, changing their outlook? Have they learned from any past mistakes? So that's maybe a small component, small piece of the puzzle, but it does not necessarily overshadow the entire character of the person. It's essentially what have they done since those aggressions in the past.
So it's a disclosure schedule, but you don't really, beyond that, it becomes a judgment call of the people who are interviewing the person then as to how you feel that has gone forward, correct?
I would say yes, and okay. If I'm speaking incorrectly, they can add in, but I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and then on this, the first information sheet that you passed out, where the qualifications are, who are these mandated by state law?
I think some are, but I think, and then there's a lot that are department qualifications.
Well, I guess I'm mostly asking about the 30 years of college credit and the United States citizen, since you can serve in the military and not be a United States citizen. So I'm just curious where these came from.
So the minimum 30 college credits, that was added to, or that's a department qualification or city qualification. That came about 4 or 5 years ago, roughly. And I think we shared something not too long ago with the Civil Service Commission about what other departments are doing as far as age requirements, education requirements. But being the fact that the police or the law enforcement profession is so complex, having the ability to really have educated critical thinkers is an important component to what we do. So that's was a qualification. But then there are some educational substitutes, as you mentioned, 1 year of active duty or a year being a law enforcement officer at some other jurisdiction. So those would be substitutes. But we're looking for at least 30 college credits. Yeah.
Along with that, also,
Yes.
the age limit is not mandatory either, is it? Cedar Rapids has a 19, which is the
Yep.
state. Yep.
Exactly. We're looking at 21. Given the critical nature of the complexity of the profession itself, yeah. Questions? Ms. Guest, any other questions?
How about the United States citizen?
I assume that that is a, could be a Iowa Law Enforcement Academy requirement, but we'll get that answer for you. Yeah.
Okay. I guess, I mean, I have concerns about the 30 college credits. I mean, I wasn't here at the time that was put into place, but
Sure.
I mean, it seems to me that there are a lot of people out there. For one thing, having to require college credits, I think, has a disparate impact on people who are minorities, and because of the disadvantages of having the funds to go to college. And I think a lot of people can become very well educated and become very critical thinkers without having gone to college. So I guess that concerns me.
Sure. Okay. So I wanted to also highlight some of our recruitment outreach. This list is not all-inclusive. It's a very fluid component. We do offer police officer applicant workshops. Our plan is to host 3 or 4 workshops right ahead of the application process, and then also during the application process. We've done this over the last several years. It's been quite successful, different areas of town and in different locations. Essentially, it's a opportunity for interested individuals and or their family members to come attend a workshop, hear about the process, the qualifications, what the job is. But I think even more importantly is we do have a variety of officers that also assist in that presentation, from officers that just graduated the police academy to those who have been around for several years that can offer different perspectives. But it's a great opportunity for one-on-one Q&A for interested individuals. And then we also talk about the opportunity for ride-alongs for the interested individuals. There's no better way to find out if you're really interested in becoming a police officer than is to get out there with a police officer and do a ride-along. So we also offer that at those applicant workshops. College and university visits. Not only do we send information out to not only to a regional but a national audience when it comes to colleges and universities about that we are hiring. I personally plan to visit our local colleges and universities to talk to the various classes, to present the fact that we are in the process of hiring. This is what the department is. This is what the department can offer. This is what a great job it entails, to see if we can't increase interest in that as well. Individual social and professional networking. This is where you all can come in. I also speak to members of the Affirmative Action Commission and the various other boards and commissions and council members, but we all run and operate within social and professional networks that we can utilize our influence to get the information out that we are hiring and utilize those connections that are so critical when it comes to outreach. Our school resource officers, I think we're about halfway or 3/4 of the way through having additional school resource officers in our local middle schools and high schools. They play a critical role in identifying those young men and women that are interested in law enforcement or public safety as a career, and they can begin that mentoring process. I think a lot of increase in the diversity of our department is a long-term process. It's building those connections early on, even probably in elementary school, and moving that through all the way through high school and then into early stages of college. The school resource officers are also critical in directing interested individuals into either the police explorers or the fire explorers that we offer, which are great trade building components that we offer here in Davenport. And of course, our best recruiters are the police officers out on the street each and every day. They are our best spokespersons. So that is a quick overview of the process. Again, it's about a 4-month process. We're looking to begin the next process beginning in March. So as we, over the next couple weeks, as I finalize the final dates and the scoring metrics, those will be presented to you all well in advance of the February meeting for your consideration, for your additional questions that you may have, which can be directed, and then we'll be looking for approval at the February meeting. Okay?
Ask a question.
Yes, Mr. Bollinger.
The only test they take is it's a national test, so it's based off of this document.
No, that's the only written test, yes.
It's the only written test.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Other testing they have, and I'm building on Karen's comments, it's a bit of a concern to me too, the 2 years of college credit. One of my good friends never went to any college, and he's as intelligent as any lawyer I deal with, and doesn't have any credits. So a gentleman like that would be great for any job, but he is restricted. But he could certainly pass any test you gave him. And so when I think about those situations, I kind of build on Karen's comments. Are we really sure that that's a requirement we want to have? While 2 years of college credit's great, shows you went to some form of college and had to do some kind of advanced level thinking. Is that really saying this test itself isn't sufficient? Because if they can pass the test, can they not do what you need them to do in the job? So I'd encourage you to evaluate that and see if it really is a barrier.
Yeah, and I will commit to you, we'll take a look at that. We'll look at the data. We'll look at whether the other departments are doing, not only in our region, but nationally, kind of what the national trends are, and present information to you in a upcoming meeting. Okay.
I have a question regarding
Yes,
the
sorry.
recruitment. What kind of recruitment tactics or plans do you have to specifically recruit a more diverse candidate?
Sure. And most of that's going to come through the individual and social networking because we all run in various different groups, social and professional groups. We all have friends who may have mentioned in the past that they're interested in law enforcement. We all may be in the position to mentor young men and women in various different cultures and capacities. So that really is, it's more of a personal connection level. I constantly are telling the commissioners on the Affirmative Action Commission that use your networks, use your different community-based organizations that you're part of to talk about this fact, become a mentor to a young man or young woman. You know, I'm personally mentoring right now a young man that I met several years ago, came out of the Safer Foundation, is African American and is also gay. And he has a definite interest in law enforcement. So I'm pushing him into beginning school, which he begins here next semester, to keep pushing him towards that particular goal. So if it ends up being that he ends up being hired by Davenport, fantastic. But I know that the overall sense is he wants to be a law enforcement professional in the future, and I think he will attain that in some capacity or some form. But really, I think the crux of the issue is our personal connections with individuals. It's all about relationship building when it comes to not only the career of law enforcement and the work that our officers do, but it's also in attracting new components, you know, selling the department and what the city offers.
So then does the city not have an official plan or policy to recruit more
No, we do.
diverse candidates?
We have
Okay.
what was formerly known as the Affirmative Action Plan, has now been named the Inclusion and Equity Plan for Equal Employment Opportunity. It was signed off on by the Affirmative Action Commission at the meeting last week. Once final signatures are garnered on that particular document, it'll be posted on the website probably within 1 to 2 weeks. So that is coming forward.
Would it be possible for us to get that document when it's available?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
How many positions are you looking at filling, and how many have you had in the past, and what percentage do you usually
The last
fill?
two, I know the last two processes, the last two academies, we had probably 8 in each academy. So we've had a very busy 2018 year with the influx of officers. 2019, I don't know if I have numbers. I don't know, Chief, if you have numbers yet for 2019.
Paul Sikorsky, your police chief. I hope the answer to that question is 0. And the reason I say that is because with these new 8 officers that just got out of the academy, we'll be swearing them in tonight at the council meeting. That brings us up to full authorized strength. We don't have, right now, we don't have any expectation of any officers leaving the agency. However, typically it has been 2, 3, 4, something like that. Just unexpected people leaving. But we have accounted for those that we know will be retiring in the next year. So we certainly want to be prepared for when we do have any vacancies, because it takes so long to get a brand new police officer trained and out on the street on their own. About a year is what it takes, and I think all of you know that. But
So your estimate is 0.
well, that's what my hope is. The reality, it's probably going to be a couple through this next year, but we don't know of any. We don't have any anticipated departures that we haven't already planned for.
So are you able to employ, knowing that historically you have some retirements you didn't know about or departures?
Yeah, so we started doing that recently with city administration, and we this past year we've done that in 3 particular cases. 2 officers are scheduled to in the drop program, so we know a specific date when they will be retiring this year, and I believe one is end of August and one is September. So we've already accounted for them. We've already trained, and 2 of these 8 that got out of the academy account for those 2 officers. So planning ahead is one of the things that we've been trying to do with our city administration, and we've been able to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Okay. Chairman, thank you for your time. Commissioners, I appreciate your time and your questions, and I look forward to future conversations. Thank you.
Looking at our old business, the Civil Service Commission Rule 2.2 vote.
Sorry, we presented this to you at the last meeting. As I explained at that meeting, it was mostly just housekeeping, kind of some cleanup items that were in that rule. The one key change there was just outlining what the 2 kind of blanket testing processes are. So whether it be just 1 testing component or 2 testing components. And then if we wanted to do a process that was anything outside of that, that it would come to you for individual approval, kind of like the police officer. That's obviously a much larger process and doesn't fall in that 1 component, 2 component category. So we would plan to bring anything that fell outside of that to you for individual approval. But otherwise, this just gives us the ability to move recruitments through in an efficient way while also being compliant with the rules that we have.
Do we have the new rule in here? I know we discussed it, but this is the old rule that's still in here.
We had provided you with a copy of the rule at the last meeting. So I didn't give you a new version of it today. There were no edits made, so it would be the same one that was proposed to you at the last meeting.
Okay, thanks.
I guess, does everyone have a copy? Is there a way that you can provide additional?
Yep, let me, would you like me to go print those for you right now? Would that be helpful?
I'm sure it would.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and just pass out the information coming up in the meeting.
if I recall, we did have a lengthy discussion on this the last time. And so if we want to just take 1 minute just to view what you have, and if we can get a motion to vote. Do I have a motion to move?
I'll make the motion to move.
Seconded.
All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. It passes. The full service commission rule review.
Yeah, we discussed that a little bit earlier. My plan is to bring the first set of those to you at the February meeting, and it would follow the same process. So we would propose them to you at the February meeting, and then you wouldn't actually vote on them until March. So we'll bring those to you in sets because there are quite a few for us to get through here, but I do plan to bring you that first set of those for your review in February.
Thank you. Certification list.
All right. I feel like I'm a little far. There we go. All right. So the first list that we have is the mechanic, diesel, and car. You have the breakdown in front of you, which I can review as well. But with this position, just a few things that I want to make note of: reconditions gas and diesel motors, disassembles, inspects and repairs the brake system, electrical, heating, air conditioner, repairs transmissions, replaces worn gears. This was an entry-level position, so we did take it outside. The testing date and time were sent to the qualified applicants. A practical exam was conducted, background checks were conducted, and then a list is ready to be certified today. 7 candidates applied. 3 candidates proceeded to the practical exam. 3 candidates passed the practical exam. 2 candidates passed the background check, and therefore 2 candidates are on the list. Okay. All right. So then you also have the breakdown there. You can see who didn't show for the test. You can also see who did take the test as well, but if it says fail there and the reject reason isn't there, that's because they failed with lower than a 70%, so just so you're aware of that. And then when you see the background, you'll see that there were 3 eligible candidates, but 1 candidate actually failed the background check. So that's why we only have 2 people on the list to be certified.
What's this job pay?
What was that?
What's the job pay?
What's the job pay? Off the top of my head, I honestly don't know. Steve, do you happen to know? And if you do, if you wouldn't mind coming to the mic. I'd honestly have to look it up to be precise. Okay. Steve could look that up for us.
So I'm curious. Sure. When we have one that failed the background test, what would eliminate someone from this position?
Yeah, so we actually have a standard definition of what would eliminate someone. So typically, it's usually like a DUI within the last 3 years, honestly, and that was the case for this one. But it could be like a propensity of things, which I want to say it's within the last 5 years if you received a DUI, especially with like a motorized vehicle. And this being the case, it would eliminate you. However, again, we do look at all circumstances and wouldn't, just eliminate someone based off of that. Thank you.
The starting for a mechanic is $24.23 an hour. Oh, Steve Kepi, Teamsters Chief Steward.
Thank you. Do we have the list? It's been passed. Awesome. All right, we'll move on if that's all right. Okay, so we have the lead plant operator. This plant operator supervises plant operations. You must be able to assist with the plant operators as needed, snow removal, plant grounds, skid steer, monitors plant operations, reads control panels, computer signals and gauges. They report plant conditions regularly, they list jobs completed, and general system performance. This was a promotional, so this position, we do have qualified candidates internally. A testing date and time were sent to the qualified candidates. An exam was conducted, and therefore we have a list that is ready to be certified. So for this position, we actually had 4 candidates that applied. One candidate did decide to pull from the actual process. 3 candidates proceeded to the exam. 2 candidates then passed the exam, and therefore 2 candidates are on the list. And because it was an internal promotional, there was no need to run the background check.
And which plant is this?
Sure, this is at our Public Works Water and Pollution Control, yes. Okay. Any further questions on that one? No? All right. So we will move on then to our street heavy equipment operator. So the street heavy equipment operator, they operate the backhoe or drag line to excavate or backfill in streets, park, or sewer work. They must be able to set up any job from a blueprint or instructions from a supervisor. They're responsible to report to their superintendent any employee on his daily work assignment who fails to perform to the best of his ability. So this really is a leadership position for sure. This was a promotional, so we did feel like we had a good pool of internal candidates. We had a testing date and time sent to qualified candidates. I would say we tried some new things with this position in that it was a promotional. We actually allowed for the first time 3 practical practice dates that were sent to all of the qualified candidates. So on 3 nights of the week, candidates had an opportunity to actually come and test the equipment and learn how to run the equipment prior to their test. Many of them did have experience in it, but based on the machinery, you know, some of them just needed a little bit more experience, so we gave them that opportunity should they had wanted it. And actually, every single candidate took us up on that offer, so that was really nice to see that it wasn't a waste of time. People really did utilize this opportunity. Something else that we tried that was new was a best practices and interview training was offered to all qualified candidates prior to the interview. That was something that I gave to the candidates. So again, not mandatory. If they wanted to come, they're more than welcome to. And again, it was really nice to see all of the candidates show up to that. A lot of times these candidates, they apply maybe 5 or 6 years ago and haven't had any opportunity for any interviewing since then. So their interview skills may not be where we would like them to be on a panel. So just giving them, some refresher course on what are some really great skills to take with them to the interview panel to be successful. That's what we want. We want a good pool of people to be able to hire. So again, great to see everyone attend that as well. So the practical was conducted, then the interview was conducted, and now we have a list that is ready to be certified. 11 candidates applied. 9 candidates proceeded to the practical exam and interview, so meaning that 2 candidates actually pulled out even before they decided they just didn't want to proceed with the process. So the 9 candidates proceeded to the practical exam and interview. 9 candidates passed both the practical exam and interview. That was really great to see, candidates passing both sections and doing very well. And then 9 candidates are on the list for approval today.
So these, the interview training and is that something that you're going to try to keep doing with more positions?
Yes. I think it's a matter of just trying to work with these supervisors and showing them some new tactics and some new skill sets that we can provide to the employees that we currently have. So yes, it was kind of neat because this supervisor in particular, I've worked with him a few times, and he was like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and try it and see if anyone comes." And I think both him and I were surprised that everyone showed up to both sections of it. So yes, we would like to continue to do that moving forward. So the next one that we have is the principal accounting clerk. As Mallory had mentioned earlier, we didn't know if we'd be able to get this one in on time just because we don't bring any list to you that hasn't had everyone background checked if it's an entry-level position. So everyone on the list has to be background checked and results cleared before we bring you the list. So with this one, they coordinate clerical procedures to maintain a comprehensive financial system. They organize and maintain comprehensive records. They provide precise and comprehensive information about accounting procedures. I do want to outline the minimum qualifications on this one in particular because there were 4 candidates who had applied originally who did not meet the minimum qualifications. So this is why I think it's important for us to just review those. Obviously, they must become an Iowa resident within the 2 years of hire, but it does require an associate's degree in accounting, bookkeeping, business, or related field, and 2 years experience as an accounting clerk or the equivalent. So you don't necessarily have to have an associate's degree. You can have up to 4 years of some type of training and experience in accounting, okay? So as long as they exhibited that in their application, we definitely had them come and test. But if they were not able to exhibit that in their application, then we did decline the application. Again, this was an entry-level position. An exam date and time were sent to the qualified candidates. The exam was conducted, background checks were conducted, and the list is ready to be certified. And it's a pretty large process, so I kind of want to break this one down a little bit for you. There were 71 applicants. 4 applicants completed more than 1 application. So that's why when you get these reports, like we pull them exactly from the website. So I don't edit them or audit them. So when you're seeing these numbers, I want to make sure that I'm explaining them. So again, 4 applicants completed more than 1 application. That just means that we deny their the first application. We always take the second application, the most recent one. And then 4 applicants did not meet the minimum qualifications, so they weren't able to exhibit what we had previously shown you. 63 applicants were then invited to take the written exam. 32 applicants came to the written exam. And just so you know, with this written exam, we gave them multiple times to choose from. So that was something that we had taken from you all, giving them an opportunity. Sometimes noon doesn't work for everyone. So you have to pick a 6:30 time or a 5 p.m. time. So we did actually give them three different times throughout the day to come in, take the exam. And I will be honest, most people took us up on the later time. So I believe the 6:30 exam time was the most popular. 3 withdrew from the process ahead of time, meaning 3 either called me or emailed me telling me that they were no longer interested. 20 actually did not schedule the exam by the deadline. So, and I will, with this, I am lenient in the sense that if someone calls me and says, if it's like a day before and is like, hey, I'd really like to take the exam, but I didn't have an opportunity to schedule the time. As long as there's room to take the exam, we want people to take the exam. So we don't want to create barriers based on technology for any of our candidates. So we would definitely let them come and take the exam. 8 did schedule the exam, so that means that we were expecting them to come, but they just didn't show up. And I don't know the reason behind that, why they didn't come. 10 candidates passed the written exam, so you must pass with at least a 70 or above. And then 10 candidates did pass the background check. I think that's it.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to the mechanic if possible.
No, that's okay.
I'm just curious about this. So if my calculations are right, it pays just under $50,000. What were the prerequisites? What was the qualifications for the job?
Yeah, so with the mechanic,
And what I'm trying to figure out is,
Yeah.
we've only got 2 people basically that made it to the end for a job that paid $50,000, and we call it entry level, but I'm sure there are some kind of qualifications that they had to have.
Yes. And it is, the mechanic position is a very difficult one to recruit for sure. So if I could, I'll go ahead and pull up actually the mechanic position. We can take a look at that.
And one of the people who qualified is only 21, so they can't have a huge amount of experience.
The qualifications are not extreme by any means, but
I'll add here, this is one position that we've been working on for many, many years to recruit for. A big part of it is we're not, I would say, fully competitive with the private market on this position. So we've tried many different recruitment tactics on this, including sign-on bonuses, an increased tool allowance, those types of things. So this is one that definitely pushes us to be more creative.
And that's sufficient for me. I was just curious. It seemed like a really good job, and you only have 2 people that make it to the end. And
well, so I can tell you some things that I've learned from some of the candidates that have applied. So a lot of times I see with some of our younger candidates, they are, when I mean they, I mean outside businesses are offering more money than we are currently, than the city is, so for mechanic jobs. And a lot of times when I'm talking to younger candidates, while the city does have an extensive benefits package, very marketable, benefits sometimes to the younger crowd are not as important as they are sometimes to someone who might have a family. So we see that, but also at that time, when you've been established in your career, maybe you're 35 and you've been a mechanic at Ford for so long, you're making a good deal of money. So to leave that job to come here, it would be difficult to take that kind of pay cut. And like Mallory said, we do offer the bonus structure, but even at that point, we really do see a struggle.
that's good for me. I was just curious. It just seemed interesting.
Question.
Yeah, some of that is also connected to the bargaining structure that, as Courtney mentioned, so even if you have, 10 years of experience with the bargaining structure that we have and the wage scale that's been adopted, you start over at a step 1, basically. So even with, many years of experience, you're at the beginning point of our wage scale, which, as she mentioned, for most of those people would indicate a pay reduction. So I think that's part of our challenge also.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Have a good weekend.